Thank
you. That's it.
Thank you.
Awesome. Do you want to begin, Nolene, just to give everyone a quick roundup?
Yeah. So, hi everyone. Welcome to today's session on navigating the UK job market. I'd like to welcome Tripti, who is joining us from Student Circus. As students of the university, you do have access to Student Circus, and Tripti will go through that with you, what that looks like, but also help you in informing your job search plans if staying in the UK is part of your short-term or longer-term plans for your career. So Tripti, thank you for coming today. Welcome, and we look forward to hearing what you have to say.
Lovely. Thank you so much. Just 1 second. I don't know if you can see it on full screen right now, or
we can see it. Yep, it's clear.
Okay, awesome. Great. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for the introduction, Aline. Okay, it works. So just a quick intro on who I am, why we're here today, and what's going to happen. So my name is Tripti, and I'm one of the founders and directors at Student Circus. We are a job search platform made specially for international students, keeping in mind the visa needs, the immigration needs, and also, I think, the very nature of the time-bound, situation we all are in usually. And yeah, just a little background on myself as well. I was an ex-international student, just like all of you all out here. So I very much relate to the complexity or, sometimes the overwhelming nature of job search that we might face. And I think the best part is that I was at Lancaster as well. So I did my undergrad in business economics from LUMS itself. That was in the year of 2013. And then I went on to CAS Business School for my master's in finance. So it's obviously always very special to, be at any event for Lancaster because of the special connect. And at the same time, keeping in mind that that international student journey is so unique in its nature, that when we first started out, we went to our careers, we went, to speak with different people, and constantly the first thing was, well, how do you make this easier? So back in 2017, me and my co-founder, Dhruv, both of us got this it was a very random idea that, hey, how about a jobs board for international students, wherein everything is, filtered for the visa needs, only employers who have the willingness to sponsor express the interest on jobs board, and you find the resources. So from there on, we have grown, from 2017 to now, we've grown to more than 50 universities in the UK alone out of the 100 top ones. And we are also in Austria, in Germany as well. So, and a team of almost 15 people now in India and the UK. I don't know if our student ambassadors for Lancaster and LUMS are on the webinar, but we do have, we were hiring for student ambassadors on campus, and we've got two amazing, international students who have finally been recruited. But in case any of you are looking for, a flexible kind of, student opportunity, do hit, let us know, and maybe we can figure something out, especially when it comes to content creation and the digital, media side of things. So that's about me. That's what the company does. Also, last thing, if anybody wants to know about the startup visa route, feel free to ping me. I'm more than happy to help you out here. But what I'll do today is we'll break this session down into 3 parts. The first being the UK market, from our understanding as an international company and ex-international students. What is the UK job market like? What are the nitty-gritties when it comes to, for an international student in terms of the visas, what to keep in mind. The second part would be more around the demo of the platform itself. So we want to make sure that you understand how to sign up, what are the features that you have, make sure you use them. And the third part would be talking about more on the resources side of what's out there, what's available, and what should be your plan of action. So yeah, hopefully after this webinar, you'll have a lot of questions, hopefully some answers to get back to us as well. But I think, Noreen, what do you suggest? We take questions in the end? I think that'd be better. Oops. No, we can't hear you. Okay, so let's take the questions in the end. If, anybody who has any questions, if you want to raise your hand or put it in the Q&A, maybe Lavan or Nolene can answer it as we go if they're more like university centric, or we can take them in if they are for me. So let's begin. The UK job market, at a glance, typically what is different and unique about the market in the UK is that a lot of the companies start hiring a year before, a year in advance than when you think, you need a job. For example, when I came into the UK, like most of you all, the recruitment cycle began in like September when I started my master's. By the time I realized that I should be applying, it was already too late because in August up until December, all the companies who are hiring on grad schemes are hiring actually for candidates to start in the year after. So, in the September of next year, which is when we finish our masters. And to me as a student, I was like, oh, well, but I don't even know what I want to do. So why should I be applying? But I was pretty wrong. Hence, I never got a job. But, if you're thinking about these schemes and about these companies, it might be worthwhile, applying now. And also, right now on Student Circus, we have more than, I think it's about 1,000 opportunities, and each graduate scheme obviously hires for more than, multiple positions. It's not just one job advert out there. The second unique thing for me as a ex-international student was how the job market operates when it comes to your degree versus your interest. So, we had in the finance class, we had a lot of guest lecturers come in. A lot of them were investment bankers. And when you go back, so there was this one guy who was working on the Nestle Cadbury deal, the Kraft and Cadbury deal. And he comes and gives us a lecture. You go back, you check his LinkedIn. And I was like, oh, wait. He studied history in his undergrad and he's an investment banker now. That just didn't make sense to me at that time. I was like, how is this possible? But I think this is one of the best things about the market, where it's not just about your degree, it's really about your interest. So where you feel you have the right skills and the right motivation is the place for you to go. We get a lot of students who are struggling in the creative sector, for example, thinking about, oh, where do we go? But they can very well get into managerial and consulting roles as well. So this is where you have to, there's a word that you will hear all around long, which is transformational skills or transferable skills. And that's something you have to apply when you go through these applications. And that's the third point, where UK employers are in favor of the soft skills. So, you need to provide that evidence in your applications around those soft skills. So it's not just what you're learning in class, but what you're really doing outside of class and beyond as well. And there are two kind of applications that you'll always see. One are rolling applications and one are the more kind of hard deadline applications. It can be quite overwhelming to, get to the deadline applications right in the very beginning. But, we always think that if you do it, you at least give it all, in terms of your chances and also the scope to make errors and learn. The latter you leave it, the more difficult it gets as well. So these are the unique things that, for us always stand out about the market. Now, in terms of the application process, the process in itself is very different to what a lot of us might see in our home countries. For example, I still remember going to a careers fair, taking my CV printed out, thinking it's a placement fair like we had in India. Obviously, it's pretty obvious that I'm from India. So, we go in with our CVs and thinking, oh, somebody's going to hire us on spot. Doesn't happen, which was such a big cultural shift for me. And for most of my friends who thought that, oh, we're going into a placement fair. If these companies are not here to hire us, what are they doing? So, that aspect in itself is so different, where these companies are coming on campus to kind of pretty much advertise how great they are as a company to work for. And if we have any questions, there is a channel to ask them right away in a more direct physical way. So it was nothing like the fair I'd expected. Great learning, but all of the things you should be knowing pretty like in advance. I know we will be there at the Lancaster Fair and our ambassador is going to be there. So if any of you have any questions on the day, make sure you go to the booth and you're able to kind of sort them out. More specifically for the application process, there's several components. Don't feel worried or overwhelmed seeing this, because these are all pretty practicable, and you can easily go to your university careers and get training on each of these. But the first one obviously is there's an online application where you put in your CV, cover letter if required, or any kind of drafted work samples. Then there's an online assessment which includes more on the psychometric test. Now these are nothing, I mean, obviously the word is heavy and I didn't even know what these mean until we came to work around Student Circus. But psychometric tests are more kind of aptitude tests, verbal reasoning. You might have given these before, for the application itself. Then there are interviews. They can be different, strength-based, panel, case studies, those kind. And usually a lot of companies have started doing assessment centers, which is kind of the in-person group testing, putting you on the spot at a situation to see how you react. Now, all of these things, if you see, the commonality of any UK job application is around who are you as a person, so that kind of you as a package, you as a sales pitch needs a lot of work rather than just going by the fact that, oh, I'm a brilliant kind of, I'm going to get a first class honors and, that's going to get me a job. That again is a part of the big cultural shift that, I was emphasizing on. The other thing to keep in mind is the timeline. So, when you're talking about the UK job market, specifically for international student, it's very important to understand this timeline of when what happens. Obviously, plans change. There's a plan A, B, C, D, E, but there's kind of a structure to this market where, online applications have started now up until December for most graduate schemes. After that, it's more rolling job, more smaller, medium-sized companies, those kind of things. But this is kind of an overall timeline to tell you this is like the sequence of events. I think personally, if you ask me to pick the most important out of, in the initial bit for me was getting the CV reviewed by the careers and networking. I think those two really make the difference in the first leg of your job application cycle. And the power of networking, I mean, it's immense. I think UK specifically as a market is all about, how open everybody is to helping one another. And I've learned this, over the past few years, coming into the country as as pretty much a foreigner, not knowing anything, and then starting a business from scratch. We had no help. There was no, father's friends to help you out, or, your uncles. You have to do it on your own. And I don't think we could have done it without really networking our way out of it. So at one point we pretty much became shameless in asking. If you don't ask, you don't get. So go out there, meet people, make sure you're able to connect, even if it's a coffee chat, you're able to connect with those people, because you never know at what journey they might help. And we've seen these surprising examples always, with friends and family who have gone out of their way to network, and that result has, gone so far. For me personally, I made sure that, I have friends across the globe. And that's such a powerful network for me now, because when we had to launch in Germany, there was a friend in Germany who helped me cut that cost and that knowledge transfer to, days instead of weeks and years. So that is a very, very powerful tool. Obviously, after that is the preparation that comes in. Now, I think one of the biggest things you will keep asking or going around is, what are the jobs that you can apply for under the skilled worker visa route, and, what are these right jobs? Also to bring in, what is the role of Student Circus in this journey? right? Now, if you look at this funnel, I think this kind of briefs it down for us most. There are now not 30 actually, now there are 60,000 visa sponsors in the UK. Now, these are the companies which have the right to hire an international student or any international, candidate. They do have a lot of graduate roles and schemes out there. But the core question that came to us was, is every one of those companies that is listed on the I will pull up that list for you. The register of sponsors and licensed sponsors is a government list of all the companies. You can find it online very, very easily. And this is on the Home Office website. Now, for us, the issue with the list was that although these companies were on the list, some of them might have got the license to hire, or fly in that one CEO from Japan to bring them to the UK, or to hire somebody super experienced. So not everybody was hiring international students, and that's the challenge that we are solving. Every job on Student Circus has been vetted out by our team through the technology that we have built, through the connections that we have, that this company will sponsor a international student on a work visa, right? So that's one category. And again, we have the GIR that has beautifully come in to help all of us. I am personally quite jealous of the fact that you guys have access to it. I had like 4 months to apply for a job, after my master's degree. It was intense. But this comes in very handy for anyone who's looking to stay on longer, more flexible. I think one of the highlights I would like to make here is really going to into careers and understanding what communication you want to give out to an employer regarding the GIR, because it can be quite confusing. Keep yourself in the employer's shoes and think about it. If you say you're an international student and you don't need a visa, make sure you're explaining your situation around the graduate immigration route to say you don't need it for 2 years, etc. So make sure that happens. And the other thing I would say is, we are here to give you this industry knowledge and really tell you what employers are thinking and writing and, expecting. One of the things that we saw on Cisco's website, for example, is they highlighted, this is Cisco's website screenshot, that a candidate must be able to legally live and work in the UK without sponsorship. Student visas or visas obtained on your own are not applicable. So they've very smartly put, translated the words of GIR into visas obtained on your own, which are not applicable. Now, you might spend like a day or two filling in the application for Cisco, but it's worth checking these things in their kind of FAQs or any of these, knowledge bases on what their status is. Whereas this is other screenshot we've got, in the below box is from Jones Day, and they are absolutely spot on happy to hire international students, and even have them on the graduate route, which allows them to work for and live for 2 more years. So there's this contrast that we thought might help you out. We are here to help you save time, and that's our job for all of you. The other thing, when it comes to saving time is, like I was mentioning earlier, really understand the cultural differences of what the UK job market is, what terminology and nomenclature is used. For example, in India, a full-time job is called a placement, which is right out of your university. But in the UK, placement is a sandwich year course, or a sandwich year that you do in industry with an employer in between your degree. So you might have heard of a lot of like master's or undergrad courses that have a placement year. That is not same as finding a full-time job, right? So make sure, even when you're going on to the platform, I'll show you shortly, that you're not applying for placements and you're applying if that's not a part of your course. We've already gone to this. That brings me to the second bit, which is presenting Student Circus, which is a global career platform for international students across the globe. We're very, very proud to have Lancaster as one of our partners, which gives you, as Nolene said, complete, full and free access to all of the features of the platform. Going by what those features are, first is all the jobs which have the skilled worker visa kind of filtered list in the UK. There's a job seekers toolkit, which helps you create a CV, map your journey. There's also internships and placements. And we also have a category called startup internships. So those really the flavor of the year, is working with the startup. And we have listed those amazing startups down, which are happy to hire international students. And also immigration guides. So if you give me a quick minute, I will start. I'll take you through a quick live demo to the student dashboard and what it looks like when you log in. Okay. So for anybody who wants to log in, go to lancaster.studentcircus.com, or you can go to studentcircus.com here. Oops. Or you can go to studentcircus.com and select your university to sign up, right? If you type in Lancaster here, it'll straight away take you to the microsite. Now here, go on to sign up. And all you have to do is put your name, university email ID, so we know that you're from Lancaster, and your password in, and create your account, right? Now, being a Bayes student, I have access to the Bayes dashboard, which I can show you, which is very similar to what you will get access. So here is my university email ID. I go to login. It takes me to my personalized student dashboard. Of course, my visa has expired, but this is what my student dashboard looks like. This is very similar to what your student dashboard will look like. Now I can go on to jobs and I can click on this, and this will take me to our amazing jobs board, which has visa sponsored jobs. Now, as you can see, there's a lot out there in terms of jobs, placements, internships, startup internships, all different types of categories that we list, within each. The moment I click on, let's say I'm looking at my pick. Okay, let's look at the PE internship program. And I read about it, I like it. There'll be a small kind of a quick tip. For example, sometimes you might end up applying to like 3 programs within a company. Nope. Sometimes they might reject you, thinking that you don't know what you're looking for, but we give you that tip that you can only apply for one of our programs. So I go and apply now. It directly takes me to the point where the company has posted that very job. Now, as Schroders might be hiring for like, let's say 200 positions. We only list the 50 or 100 for which they're hiring international students. So you can come here, very well apply and come back. Now we ask you, did you apply for this job? Say yes, no, or save. Let's say I'll say save. We track your journey on a tool called Map My Journey, which says what are the jobs that you applied for, what are the jobs that you've viewed, and you also have the ability to add reminders like, oh, I need to follow up with this employer on the 25th. Add a note and you add it to your calendar. So this is exclusively, again, for all of you. Then there are a lot of like resources available, one being the immigration guide, which is extremely popular at our partner institutions. Now, this guide has all the FAQs around different visas that you might have, questions on. Now, you might look at things like, okay, what are the things that employers are thinking and looking at, right? So for example, an employer might be thinking, how long does it, take to sponsor a candidate on a skilled worker visa? Is there a minimum salary? All of these questions are answered here in very easy language. So you don't have to go to the government website unless it's absolutely, absolutely critical, right? So you will find a similar one on, startup visa. What is the startup visa? How do you switch? How long is it valid for? What's the, any PhD student who's out here? What is the graduate immigration route? How much does it cost? How do you switch? Are there any restrictions on it? All of that. So it's a great kind of we often call it like a crash course. Also super useful if you have tiny doubts that you want instantly answered. But for anything else, I would definitely recommend you must visit your university's visa and immigration team. Please do not listen to, corridor, rumors around different visa situations. It is absolutely critical you get your answers solved from a professional. In our case, the professionals who have done it are called Pennington Manges Cooper, and they are a law firm in London itself, right? So that's the other feature you have access to. Then within the job seekers toolkit, there's a CV builder. Again, I would definitely recommend you go to the university careers to create your CVs, which is more personalized, which is more like for you and the industry that you want to go in, right? Let's go back to the presentation. Now, apart from the features of the platform, here's a quick screenshot if anybody wants to take or scan the QR for the sign up link. You can scan this QR or go to lancasterstudentcircus.com, enter your email ID. I hope you've got it. If not, I'll give it another 5 seconds. And that's what the jobs board looks like, immigration guide. Now, coming to the third part of the presentation, what are employers looking for? What are the things that we get to hear from them a lot? Now, the top thing that pretty much I think 80% of the employers will come back and tell us is that usually international students are not prepared for the process. So my first tip is that each company will have a specific application process. Make sure you learn about that before applying. You might put in an online application and straight away get an email about a test that you need to do. Unless you have known that's going to happen, the chances are that you will not do well at that test. There goes your chance of securing a job, right? So this pre-planning, this pre-kind of knowledge is absolutely necessary. And this is not only for internationals, I would say this is for even home students. Anybody who's looking for a job needs to understand firstly how to apply for it, right? The second thing that companies have told us is sometimes students don't remember or know that there are resources and insights provided by the HR teams of the companies on their official websites. So for example, you are looking to apply in I know for sure like ACOM, they do a lot of content, ex-colleagues, current staff members who talk about what the application process looks like, etc. What a day in the company is like, those kind of things. Make sure that you understand and use these tools. From what we see, companies do want to hire talented students, but they need to see that same kind of interest also from the other side, where they can see well-rounded and prepared candidates. So, and I can tell you one more thing, now that we are a part of this, network of companies, also in recruitment, education, we often talk to a lot of kind of top CEOs, top HR professionals. Every time we talk about, what are the top problems you face as a company, definitely HR and employees is one of them. And, companies also equally desperate to hire great candidates because that's how they will grow their firm, right? But they need to see that incentive come out. So it's not only you who wants to be hired, the other end is equally desperate. Then make sure that you're worth their time, right? That's kind of the top thing I would say. Now, just to give you some fillers into what applications processes look like and how it's described, it's key that you understand this when you're making the list of the companies that you want to apply. Now, Atkins, for example, has clearly listed that there will be these 6 steps involved. Now, the moment that you can prepare for a situational general test or a virtual interviews are, I think for me, they're a little trickier than physical ones, because you're trying to reflect on a personality without being there physically. So you will find it, a little challenging. But as long as you can prepare for it, the university has so many tools. I know that Lancaster Management School has so many tools that can prepare you for these steps. They even have a chatbot for you to ask them questions, which is amazing, right? They will personalize it for you. PwC does this thing called PwC's Virtual Park, where you can actually go and talk to their employees in a virtual office, which is such a brilliant thing to do. Again, it takes you see how many clicks it took us to get to the PwC Virtual Park. Now that's the kind of investigative attitude you need to have. Again, Atkins does a lot of video content to tell them what happens where. So what happens at assessment center? As an international student, you might not have even heard of assessment center. The fact that you can watch it for a company, this might even help you in your other applications, right? So be smart about how you approach things. So these are some of the examples to tell you what is these things looking like. Now, from our end, again, this is all experience based, guys. We talk to employers day in and day out just to know how we get you hired. Some of the things we've listed down. Now, these are 10 topics or 10, I would say, tips and tricks that we want to share with you, right? Each of them is unique. I don't want to highlight too much on them because we've spoken about this through the presentation. I want to leave some time for questions. If you ask me to pick the top 3, my first one would be do reach out to alumni. The second is network. And the third would be a little more around educating the employer. Now, you don't have to go out there and lecture the employer, but sometimes companies might not know of the realistic rules, applications that are applied for international students. For example, the most common one for us is a lot of employers come in and say, oh, we can't hire an international student, it's expensive, we can't spend so much money. Or the other thing they'll say is the minimum salary is £35,000. It's not. The minimum salary starts from 20,800, goes up depending on the job title, right? Now, these are again the things that you can tell them. This is all available on the immigration guide. So make sure you use that and understand it, right? So these are the top 3 things I would say. Apart from that, we are only as good as the number of students who get jobs through us, right? Now, in the future, if any of you do secure a position, please tell us about it. We want to make you the star of the show. We make sure that you might have learned from someone, and let's make sure that somebody can similarly learn from you as well. Your journey is very, very powerful, right? So some of the students, for example, we have Jessica, and her tip for all of you is practicing online tests is super important and critical. Make sure you do that. Christy, she says that I visited my career service every year when the academic session began, and she definitely recommends doing that. She would regularly submit her CV and get the careers advice on it. Sonikan, she's from Malaysia, and she says it's important to give yourself time to finish online tests. Do not rush them. Very, very good advice. And we've got an employer, Dhruvin, who has hired some interns from us, and he's still hiring from us constantly. And he says, we asked him, Dhruvin, why do you want to hire international students? And he said, for their experience. They are always eager. They have always shown such a big edge, when it comes to really pushing for the best. And that's why, I want to hire them. And how can these students get a head start by really using the international experience and proving how global they are really as citizens, right? And how they can bring it to their work. So that's what uh, one takeaway could be. Apart from this, you will find a lot of insights on our blogs page on Student Circus itself. So make sure you can see that, read that, and learn from that. Little things, right? How to write a professional email. I appreciate English is not the first language for a lot of us. But at the same time, in an English job market, we need to be able to communicate. So this would be my top thing to say. Well, look at how to write these emails. We've got plenty of more such blogs. I think the top blog was one of the most frequently asked interview question in these times is, how did you spend time during COVID? And you really have to come off with a extremely good human answer. Cooking and watching Netflix is definitely not one of them, right? So yeah, that's the other thing I would say we need to highlight. And that's about it from me. So thank you everyone for listening. Hope the last 35-40 minutes are useful in your job search and you will be able to, execute some of the things starting today. So anybody looking for a job, start. That's the most important thing.
Thank you, Tripti. And if you do have a question, if you could post it in the Q&A section. I'm just going to claim host back. Fantastic. So yes, essentially, if you've got any questions, post them in the questions and we'll get back to you. In terms of everybody, I've just put a link in the chat area, which is to the UKISA website, Advice for Working After Studies, which is what Tripti referred to in the presentation. So if you do want to understand what your visa options are, it's important to research those. So the more you know, the more empowered you are to have those conversations, as Tripti said, with employers, but also to inform your career decision making, so you know what you need to do, whether it's staying short term or long term. All the information is there. I have answered some of the questions that's come through already on the Q&A. So regarding we've not yet started our masters, or we've not yet finished our degree, you need to have it on your CV. Employers know this, and it doesn't matter if you're applying for jobs in the UK or back home or a third country. Employers know that you've not yet completed your studies. But if you're applying at this point in the year to large scale organizations that are doing big recruitment, they need to know what you're currently studying, and they need to know what your expertise is, what your background is, and when you're due to graduate, so that they can make informed decisions about their recruitment processes. So do check my answer on that. One question has come through: will the database be updated regarding whether the process is closed, Tripti? So once the job has been advertised, is there an update that will be received to say that the job is now closed?
Yeah. So all of the jobs that we have on the platform, since they're directly posted from the employer website, there is an algorithm in place that these are removed as soon as the employer closes the deadline. So you will not see jobs which are basically not hiring anymore. We do update them pretty regularly.
And it's worth being active on those platforms. So as Lancaster University students, you have access to a number of different platforms to help you with different aspects of your career, to inform your skills, what your values are, what your strengths are, but also to help you with your job search. So do engage with these platforms so that you can really make the most of your job search and take a lot of the stress out of it as well. So with Student Circus, I think what the bonus or what the advantage of this is that these companies will sponsor visas. So visas is not a discussion you need to have with these companies, because they are informed, they have in-house expertise, and it's not something that you have to feel uncomfortable about doing. So these, that at least it doesn't have all the companies in the UK, unfortunately, and I know Student Circus is growing, but it is a really good starting point to look at those organizations that you can apply to. I've had another question, Tripti. I am looking for a part-time job with respect to my master's to gain industry knowledge before I search for full-time jobs. So where can I find these jobs? And it's around business analytics, so relevant experience, part-time experience for their masters.
I think what's tricky again about masters with part-time experiences, I would definitely recommend that you start applying for internships, which also happen like next year, maybe. That gives you kind of the edge as well. But more part-time roles under the business analytics would be quite something that you need to do directly with the employers. A lot of the times we've seen that when master's students are applying for internships, and they highlight that they want to work on a part-time basis for the internship, employers do agree for it, because again, they're getting somebody who is at that upskilling level as well. So we don't necessarily advertise roles saying part-time, but you can definitely convey that to the employer, and then it's definitely a conversation for you to take with them.
I would also add to that as well, because internships are generally aimed at undergraduate students who are in their second year, transitioning into their third year, and internships tend to be a full-time opportunity. There are internships, as Tripti said, who will consider part-time. Be mindful of your visa requirements, that you cannot work more than 20 hours a week during term time. And for master's students, the summer is term time, because you're either doing a project or dissertation. So legally, you can only work part-time. But as Tripti said, contacting these companies directly, but also consider overseas experience, because even if you want to work in the UK, getting either doing remote projects, or if you're visiting home and there's an opportunity to get work experience, all of this is valued by UK employers. It doesn't matter where the employer is coming, where the employer is based, the experience is valued by other employers elsewhere in the world. So, don't restrict yourself, and do look at other opportunities. Okay. Another student, and it's one of our overseas students that is based on one of our overseas campuses, and they've not been to the UK. Do you advise me to come to the UK to look for a job with a visiting visa in the UK, or should I apply for jobs in Ghana? Now, that is a tricky one, because a visiting visa is for visiting only, so you wouldn't be able to do any work related activities as part of that, and I do think that includes interviewing. What I will say is the skilled worker visa, and chime in anytime, Tripti, on this, but the skilled worker visa points-based system is more accessible for employers to use, but also for overseas students to access. So the fact, there are a couple of caveats with it, that you're under the age of 26, and that you're obviously studying at a linked university with Lancaster in the UK. The points might be more accessible to you, but applying from Ghana, if you're looking to come to the UK, is your first step. Interviews can be conducted online, and a lot of employers will look at conducting interviews online. But equally, getting a job in Ghana in your chosen sector, building up your knowledge, your expertise, your visibility in your sector, and your networks can then, as Tripti said, networks open doors for you. So if you build up those networks, that expertise, that knowledge, and that reputation, companies can then do what's called intercompany transfer visas, and you can work for those companies based in the UK if they've got branches in the UK on a visa that way. So there are ways and means of getting to the UK, but don't put yourself in a position where you might be getting yourself in trouble on a visa. Okay, so let's just see if there's any others. So the recording will be shared. We are going to be adding the recordings to our YouTube channel, which we have just created and we are populating at the minute. It is imminently going to be shared with you all through email, so do keep an eye on that. We will keep you updated. So we have an MSc Finance student who's done 3 internships, has not had a full-time job, is finding it difficult in their preferred sector, because it's really difficult finding a job in my if I've not had a full-time. Also, if it's really difficult out there, should I look for internships next year? Tripti, do you want to take this first of all? And
Yeah, sure. So I think hi Jay. It's I would say 3 internships is great for you to begin with when you're applying. I would definitely recommend that you apply for full-time jobs, but also apply for internships, because a lot of internships do get converted into full-time jobs. I know for a fact this time there were 2 companies. I think one was GT. There's one more who didn't even have to open their graduate schemes because they hired their interns onto their graduate schemes. And that happens a lot, right, Nolene? Like a lot of
yeah,
companies end up hiring their interns. I would say that you apply for both. You have good, like 3 internships is incredible. Make sure that that you put them on a CV, which makes it super relatable on a skill level. And yeah, that should do the trick, really.
I'd also say if you are having difficulties, it's quality, not quantity. So I've had students apply to 3 jobs and get an offer versus a student who's applied to 100 jobs and not gotten an offer. Because recruiters are experienced, and recruiters can spot a CV and an application that has had no time spent on it versus somebody who's done the research, who's motivated, who can communicate very clearly their experiences. And with 3 internships, you have excellent experience. I would encourage you to engage with the career service. Look at the CV guide, look at the CV help on the career service website. Make sure your CV is maximized in terms of its potential, and make an appointment to see one of the careers coaches or careers advisors to get support on that. So you can talk to, if you're an MSc Finance student, Paul McCormick or Tanya Parry can help you with having a look at your your approach, not so much your CV, but your approach and what you're doing, to make sure that you're doing the right things, you're visible and applying in the right areas as well. That's really important. So make sure you engage with the career service. Okay, so it's been a busy week. I've spoken a lot this week, so my voice keeps going. Apologies. It's one of those first week, second week back. It's crazy. So you start losing your voice. So I've heard that even, oh right, so this is the thing about sponsors. So even if a company is a sponsor and they're choosing between an overseas candidate or a British candidate, they may navigate towards the British candidate. And I would say that this completely depends on the organization and the organization's values and culture. So of course, for an organization, it is more cost effective, and it is easier for them to hire a British candidate over an international candidate, because on average it can cost an employer £7,000 to £10,000 to hire an international candidate. And also there's the paperwork involved in sponsorship. But companies who are actively engaged in sponsorship, especially at the graduate level, this is already factored into the recruitment plans and the recruitment budgets. So it's not something that they have to worry about. So a lot of it is corridor rumors, I think, and bad news travels quicker than good news. I do know that, and I don't know if you've noticed this, Tripti, on the register of licensed sponsors that you mentioned earlier, that register has doubled in size since the pandemic started. Which shows employers are engaging with the international market. When I remember doing a webinar just before the pandemic hit, and we had about 30,000 employers on there. It's inching up to 70,000 employers, and that's in less than 2 years. And employers are engaging more with students. But then you also have the graduate route, which I would say to a lot of students, unless if you want to stay long term, it's a great safety net. It's also a great way to work with an employer on a probational basis to demonstrate your value, demonstrate your fit with the organization, and then to move into the skilled worker route. So there's lots of ways and means, again, of navigating that. yeah, I would say it's a much more positive landscape.
Definitely. And I think we even see that out of the conversations, so many companies don't even differ in these two, applicant groups anymore, because for them, it's all about the value that comes, at the end out of it. So
it's also, as well, it's proven that a diverse workforce contributes to a company's profitability and productivity. So this is something employers are increasingly recognizing, and it's, they are looking for that diverse culture within the company. EDI is a factor. Equality, diversity, and inclusion is a factor that is becoming more important to employers. So, and they're using it as part of their recruitment strategy as well, because they want to attract individuals from diverse backgrounds, including country. So country of origin is factored in there as well. So yes, it's difficult for all graduates. It's going to be competitive. So it's about making sure that you're putting yourself in the most advantageous position, and that you're engaging with the career service and with Student Circus to maximize your opportunities. Okay, I think that's all the questions that we've had come through. Thank you, Tripti. That was absolutely fantastic. It has been recorded. We will stop the recording now and make sure that this will be shared on our YouTube channel.
Brilliant.